You've seen amazing latte art in cafes, but now you've got your home espresso machine, you're hoping to be able to replicate that at home. The thing is, it's actually really hard to do latte art and you need to learn a few things before you can do amazing, beautiful tulips and hearts and rosettas like you see in cafes. It takes a little bit of time to master, but I'm hoping that this video will help you get amazing latte art designs that you and your friends will be really impressed by. The first important thing to decide when doing latte art is what kind of milk you want to use. Now, I'm going to do an entirely different video on alternative milks like oat and almond milk, but for this one I'm going to focus on cow's milk. So for cow's milk, a lot of people like skimmed milk, but for latte art I really recommend using whole milk. The higher fat content in whole milk really helps to get that really silky smooth texture that will make your latte art much better. Now, that's not to say that it isn't possible to do amazing latte art with skimmed or semi-skimmed milk, but it is much harder, so in the beginning I recommend starting with whole milk. There are three important components of milk that we need to understand just a little bit in order to get great latte art. There's the lactose, which is the milk sugar, there's proteins, and there's fats. Applying heat to all of these different components of milk will get different effects, and bringing them all into equilibrium is necessary to get a great latte. As you apply heat to the milk, the lactose or sugars will sweeten up to a certain point. At about 70 degrees C, they start to get scalded, which means you'll end up with more bitterness and less sweetness in the cup. As you apply heat to the proteins in the milk, their stringy structures will uncoil, resulting in much more interesting texture. Heat too much though, and the proteins will start to denature, resulting in clumpy, weird tasting milk. The fats in the milk are generally fine because fats can handle a much higher temperature than both the lactose and the proteins. This is why if you go into a cafe that does latte art, you know that they've at least gotten some of the components of milk steaming correct, because they wouldn't be able to do latte art without it. Let's talk about getting to know your coffee machine. This is the machine that I've been using for the last few years. It's a Rancilio Silvia V1. It's a fantastic machine, but you have to get to know your machine before you can expect to get great latte art results from it. For example, as many of you know, for this kind of single boiler machine, you do have to purge the steam one for quite a while to get the wetness out of it so you can have a nice dry steam that will incorporate a lot of air into your milk. It also took me a while to realize that you need to heat up your machine for a lot longer than you expect in order to get steam for great latte art. Trying to steam your milk when the machine is not heated up enough will result in you running out of steam halfway through the process, which is exactly when you need to get the roll going. So as you turn the steaming button on your machine on, note how much time it takes to get to the right temperature for steaming milk. Now that that's out of the way, let's talk about getting the right pitcher for latte art. Now, a smaller pitcher is totally fine for cappuccinos, but if you want to do latte art, which is traditionally an 8-ounce drink, I recommend getting a 20-ounce latte art pitcher. Having extra room at the top of the pitcher is really important for getting a good roll going. There are a lot of different kinds of jugs out there, but unless you're a professional barista, you don't need to go out and spend 80 to 100 pounds on some special fancy latte art pitcher. I'll leave a link to the first latte art jug I used and also the current one that I'm using in the description box below. But really in the beginning, a latte art pitcher doesn't make very much difference to your designs, and you should focus on getting the milk steaming right and also on the technique. Speaking of technique, let's make sure we put the right amount of milk in the pitcher before we start. While a latte is 8 ounces and you will have a 2-ounce espresso to add in with it, I would recommend putting a little bit more than 6 ounces of milk into the pitcher. While you will end up wasting a little bit of milk, it's much better than running out of milk just at the end of your design when you're doing the pull through. For a latte, the most important technique is incorporating air in a slow and methodical way. What you're looking to hear is a hiss, not a rumble. The best way that I know how to do this is to have a place where you put the steam wand every time you go to steam milk. What I usually do is I put the wand in the spout of my pitcher every time, point it towards the middle, and then tilt the jug so that the wand is going to the 3 o'clock position. Make sure that the steam wand is buried only about half a centimeter below the surface of the milk. That way you'll get the roll started immediately when you start steam going. Once you've gotten enough air incorporated into the milk, you want to pull the jug up just a little bit to stop the introduction of air, and that's when we get the vortex going. Let's talk about getting the vortex right, because I've seen a lot of people on home machines getting a swirl rather than a vortex, which is where the milk is rotating rather than rolling up and down. On a home espresso machine, this isn't ideal because a swirl won't incorporate the heavy layers of milk and the light layers of milk together to create a milk foam. What you'll find if you do this is that you'll have a heavy milk layer that won't create any design as it goes through, and then you'll have a very foamy light layer that will create splodgy designs when you're finished. Instead, make sure that the wand is pointing more downwards in the pitcher than it is to the side, which will create a roll rather than a swirl. A really important thing to know is when to stop heating the milk. Now you can buy milk thermometers that you hang on the side of your pitcher, but I usually just use my hand, and when it feels too hot to touch to for more than about 1 second, that's when I stop the steam. If you don't stop heating the milk at the right point, it won't be as sweet. And who wants to do a really great latte art design but find that the coffee itself actually doesn't taste that good? Here are a few ways that you can practice steaming milk for latte art. Get some water and put 1 drip of dish soap in it and steam as you would with regular milk. The dish soap gives a little bit of extra texture to mimic milk, and it's much cheaper. Okay, now that we've got milk steaming down, in the next video I do in this series, I'm going to teach you how to do the pour, which is probably the most difficult in terms of technique, but once you get it, you'll be able to pour hearts, tulips, and rosettas with ease. Try it out at home. I really hope this video helped you improve your milk steaming. If it did, leave a like and subscribe, because the next videos I do in this series will be about how to pour hearts, tulips, rosettas, and other beautiful latte arts. If you have any questions or thoughts about this, please leave a comment below. I respond to almost every comment on the channel so far. Enjoy making beautiful latte art, and I'll see you next time. As you are high, apply. Instead, make sure that your wand is pointing down in the pitcher more than it is pointing to the side to create a roll while a swell. The next video I do in this series will be about how to do the pour, which is one of the most difficult techniques, but blah 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 blah. First, get some water and put 1 drip of dip soap in it. Dip soap?